Hello everyone, welcome back. Session 2 for our AI training with Python. What we did yesterday, just a quick recap team. We're trying to build AI assistant bots that would try and do some of our manual tasks that we perform and help automate it. So we spoke about how we're going to be building it overall. What are the few websites that we will look at and so on. It's some very basic code that we put in. We didn't even do an execution, nothing to execute in here so far. But in a day or two, we'll start executing. What I would like to focus today is how we do data storage or data structures within Python. What are our various options for data? What could be our best data storage option for R. This becomes very important. Let's look at and focus a little bit on that and how we put it into code. This basic code, I'm gonna a lot of content here. Give it a different flavor. I'll just create a new one. I'll just code it. Okay. So anything that we're putting in primarily are variables, and or they can also be constant where data does not change. There is a whole concept of the type of variables. I'm assuming most of you have gone through Python basic tutorials. All of this would have been covered in it. But we'll do a quick recap of it. So remember, for us to be able to get any of this information, there were 2 or 3 critical things that we had to pass. One was the URL, the other was how to identify the element. Maybe the next is how many top elements or the count of elements that we will get. What are these elements that I'm referring to? The attribute name and then the attribute value of that HTML tag. We will get to it in the next session. So once we finish this, this is about the data storage. Now, how to access a web app or page, and what do you do when we access a web page team? You use a browser, you go to navigate, then we do 2 things team. We basically have a display or a monitor that we call, and that's your visual where you're able to see exactly what to do. Then you have your keyboard through which you're able to type or send input data. And then you have your mouse through which you can click or select specific things. So when we are accessing a web page, you primarily have to perform all of this. And some of the applications that you navigate may ask you to authenticate your credentials. They may be private, they may not be public, and they may not like that you're trying to access. So there are times you need tokens, you need username, password to be created or sent. And these steps could be optional. It does not have to be a mandatory step. But if I'm just getting a cricket score or a CNN or BBC highlights, I don't need. But if I need to log into my, let's say, Google accounts or any other private accounts or actual work applications, I will need it. Now, these are, and then we basically get what we want as final content, be it you want to read an email, you want to read an article, you want to watch a movie, a video, OTT platform, anything. You basically try and do the same process. We have to replicate the same use at the code level. Okay, so these are the steps to use for us. Now, we're talking how to access a web page. To do this, there are actually two ways to use it. One is using a WebDriver like Selenium that will help me to connect to a browser and interact with the web application. Or just a HTML reader through Python that will get me the HTML of the page that I'm trying to do. You will not be able to do all the authentications and perform all the actions. But the basic things could help. What is important is what you're learning. Most of you would have experienced WebDriver and seen it in action, so we're going to try it that way. We will also try it with HTML reader. This is when it comes to UI-based user interface, where you are using visual keyboard and mouse to interact. Okay. And primarily built for humans. Lot of this application, not all of these applications, many of them also provide APIs for accessing. In the case of APIs, you remember we were in yesterday's, we saw 2 or 3 websites, and then we saw an entire list of web service APIs that is offered by weather.gov that we could use, and these seem to be free public APIs, right? We went to the end, so some of the end. So the approach, and here we wrote some information being the same. There has been writing on the code. The approach for APIs is much more simpler. One, we send a request. To send a request, sometimes before it, again, you may need authentication and token. It's actually called token authentication. You may also need something called as a payload, actual input data being sent. Then we send a request. Requests are primarily your CRUD operations. Anything that is interacting with the database, either to read, create, update, or delete. Typically, yeah, we get post, delete, just 4 or 5 of them. We go through some of these. And then you have an endpoint URI. To which you send that request, and then you get a response code 200, 404, etc. Each meaning a specific things for us, which tells me my request was successful, my request was not received, server did not respond, and so on. So all that complexities of what I want to do in a way of UI flow, I'm trying to do the same in API. Here I'm just sending a request to a URL and it will give me a response. Sometimes it will also give me response body, error message, details, and so on, depending on what I want. Now, this works fantastic between system to system communication or a code to system communication. Not so much with a human to code, but still human understandable to a large extent. The whole process that we're doing is a flow of building an automation, and then finally our bots. The same concepts team, when we apply it to testing, it would become test automation. So that will be an easy upgrade later when we are verifying all that we get as a response and make sure that we're able to perform those specific steps to and assign it to a test case of the scenario. Right. So let's go back to our data structures and see what we need. I have the steps for the web. So what is it that we're doing here? I think that we have this. We were just playing in the other one. I'm going to do exact thing here. These are all comments. So I'm just doing multi-line comment team. Keyboard shortcut is a control question mark on your keyboard. That will be right beside on the right side on this the shift key. So control pressed and the question mark. Each of this is a comment. Nothing is there. So very important data. So I have 3 data streams, and this is how I'm kind of putting them as of now. U1 in this first class, and then count equals, let's say 10 or 11. This is my data set. Okay. If you notice, team, if I do something like I and put WU1 and run this code, there is nothing I'm doing out here. So I'll just say print this command and type of a variable. So just like any other programming language, Python has inbuilt variable data types into which it automatically assigns depending on what you put in here. Now, if let's say I have another variable which is not related, u2 dummy, and this is 11.234, and let's try and print some of this. So anything that is going within quotes or double quotes becomes the simplest format of strings. It is taken as is alphanumeric text, no, not a number, not any type of other data type. Okay. So here we have this. Let's do u1 underscore count and u2 underscore dummy. So when we run a Python code, your IDE, what we're using is PyCharm team. You're welcome to it. Use any of your favorite IDEs. The simpler the IDE, the better. We don't want to put our complication in the features from IDE, but the power that we get from the code. So when we run our code, we would get everything in our console as an output. And that is what we'll constantly look at. My inputs going in here, my outputs coming in here. So, like I said, the first one is a string. The second one, since it does not have any decimals, it's just a to be positive or negative number. It's an integer. The other one is a float because it has decimals. Based on this, the amount of space needed in the actual memory for this virtual environment where Python is being executed will be assigned to the program. In Python, if you look at that, primarily these data types. W3 schools, remember, you can continue to use that as a decent reference on the side for you. There you go. These are various types. Okay. Now see, individual data and value. X is this, X is 20, X is 20.5 string in float. These are the 3 things that we saw. Complex or scientific numbers holding very, very large number of data and decimal spaces. when you get deeper into your data sciences and machine learning, you'll start using those numbers as well. These out here are very important. I want to talk about that. And then we will talk about, so out here, most importantly, list. We will talk about our dictionary, and then we will talk about JSON directly. This text.json file. But so what are we trying to say here? If I have a single variable to store that has got no relation with or correlation with any other variable, then I'll store it individually. But if I believe certain data can be combined or clubbed into one package and assigned to one larger variable which contains more data, that is what lists do. Primarily, they are ordered, so they're all in sequence. I know what is my first element, second element, third element, or items in that list. Your access will start with 0. So if I say my list 0, it is apple. My list 1, banana. My list 2, cherry. And the total size of the list itself is 3. It will have very simple inbuilt methods team that will help you to access the list. So if I want to get a specific item of a value, length is there. Yeah. You see this? So it doesn't have to be all one data type. It can be with different data types. So what are the items that we could put in a list? Simple things are any human related to. Let's say there's a human one. So I would say for that specific person, we're trying to create a list of, let's say the first I'll put as first name, and then I have next one, last name, and then let's say date of birth, and then let's say I put zip code. Actually, let's put something like that. So this is one collection of data. So when I say print, if I say type of hum1, I don't know what is hum. That is one option. You can see what does hum1. What is hum? Is it an integer? Is it set? Is it a list? And so on. I also want to print, let us say, my last name. So in the order of the list, it is second element. Since the count starts with 0, this will become 1. But since I don't know what this is, in my print, I'll make it a little bit more friendlier representation. I'll say name. This comes into the code. And I can use an ampersand or a plus to concatenate two strings. This is a string and this is a string. This doesn't have to be, like I said, all of the same type string. And this is one advantage that we have in a very simple manner available to us when we program. So in the same way, for a website one, now I will put everything into one list. Let's run this. Let's see what we get in, and then into the other. What did I do wrong in here? First, I think this is definitely not causing this error. But whenever you get a syntax, this is one of the simplest things that you're going to fix. Your debugging skills are very important. What happened? Where did it occur? What did I do wrong? That becomes very important thing. So see in the list as you declare out here, I think everything is. Oh, did I start it with 0, 1, 2, 4? Yeah, see, if I say 0, 1, 2, 4, it is looking at it as maybe and saying a decimal is there. So a number is 0124 is the same as 124. So why is it 0124? So if I want to put it as 4 digits, then I will need to put it in quotes. If the number is as is coming in for us without any decimals or leading zeros, I can use it as is. Because if I try to put this as number, it will lose the value of 0, which may be needed. Let's say that's your PIN number and you need to put that. So I change this. The reason I could do it is I could see this caret sign pointing to exactly where the issue is, line 18, and that character. It says leading zeros in decimal integer literals are not permitted. So either I have to put it in a string, so it'll take the value as is. When I want to use it as a number, I will be able to use it later. As is, it should be. So let's rerun the code. And this is where I got the list, but where is my name? Print name. Unsupported operand type S for string and string. Okay, it is actually double ampersand. Yes. Let's try plus. These are the small syntax that differ from your programming language system. So plus is an overloaded operator. Primarily can be used for simple additions of numbers or concatenation of strings. I believe the same can be done with ampersand, but much that's fine. Let's keep plus. I've got what I want to. So for me, it is important to store what I want in specific ways. So I got this. So I'm putting my first item in the list. These are my list items. Then we look at the difference between list and a few other data sets and how a dictionary or a JSON file can be created. This is a very important thing because once we set our data and how it's going to be given as inputs or outputs, it'll be easy for us to write the remaining logic of the program. The next is the all about the element identification, what attribute I'm taking from the HTML tag for that specific text. And next, I have a count of how many elements I have. So instead of defining 3 different variables, I'm having the ability to do it all in. Is my advantage. Okay. So this was just playing around. So just playing. WUR. We can get the length and start accessing each and every element within it and do a loop and start adding conditions. We will be doing that in a next session. So when I said print the list, it printed all the elements in the list. Now, the challenge is as your code gets complicated, sometimes I don't know if, let's say there are more elements, there are just 3 in this case. There are more items in the list. And I don't know what is URL, I don't know which one is what. So just by looking at the data, it is very tough. Unless I put a comment or a user guide basically saying that it's in the order of URL, and then I have the attribute value for that specific element that I want. That element. This is what I'm referring to. Why is this important? I may go to a different website, and here, let's say this is now bbc.com. This may be different, and let's say I just want the top 5 from this website. So my data is changing. My list also is a new list. Now I'll just say this is U2. Okay, web U2. The way we are able to minimally store information, with not having, as you're a single developer, not a problem team. Small codes, not a problem. As the codes increases, the team size increases, your collaborativeness becomes important. So what can we do within Python? Let's see. You saw primarily the list, and you can change the values in it. I can say, for example, changing means, let's say I said W U2 in square brackets 2. What does it refer to? Anyone in the chat, please? Can you tell me what is the value that I'll get if I print this? You can put the answer in the chat, please. What would I get at line 15 when I would print this? Did anyone guess? I didn't get anything because it is case sensitive for us, our programming. In fact, forget about which programming is case sensitive or not. You must be case sensitive as an end user. Put everything as case sensitive. You declare it with lower W, upper U, do the same here. And now if I print it, I would get 5. Okay. What if I change the value of this and then print it? If I change the type, I didn't change the type. I just changed the value to 4 and I print it. So I have the power to be able to update it. Now, there are things like, let's say, sets, which are very similar into like our lists. The difference you will see there are curl brackets, and the only difference is they're muted in the sense that you cannot change them. And it is not really ordered or indexed, it's just a set of items. So, and since we are basically saying, it's like if I want to say weekdays, nothing is changing, right? It will always be the same for me. So I'll say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Single quote is also fine, team. You're basically saying that this is my list, or it will not keep changing. It's constant. If the usage has to change, someone has to come here and say, you know what, not MTW, I want it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You change it at the source. You cannot change it by using an assigning operator. Things that are not changing, do not have to be in specific order for you and so on, can be put. Now, remember I was talking about last concept. I know sometimes data structures can be little in terms of, it's not that complicated, very few, a string, integer, float, list, a dictionary, or primarily we go straight to JSON. You're more than welcome to go through some of this, refer them, and see what happens. Do you see this way of writing, team? This is what we call as key value pair. So instead of writing what you see above, I have a different way of representing it. It's now WU3 equals, there is a whole combination of this dictionary. It's a key and a value. So my key are these URL, attribute elements, element count. Okay. Key is URL, and there is a value, and then there is attribute name. Same thing. And this name value, are we going to use XPath? How are we going to identify that? We're going to be putting up in here. So, one second, everyone. Sorry. Attribute name, and then I add the type. So it is very readable. It is much more human manageable, though it may take more lines of code to replicate the same. I don't necessarily go by the order of the element. Whenever I want to access, I just go by the name of the dictionary and then the key. I'll get the value. So I'm able to easily store my data in a similar way, where instead of having multiple variables for each or having a list with everything in one, I could store it as a key value. Remember this team, it will become very close to what we will do when we do JSON, the key value pair concept. So JSON is nothing but a JavaScript object notation, another more famous, popular, newer way of exchanging data between systems, still human readable and very, very easy for us to program. All right, so this is my new dictionary that I created, where I have a key, I have a value, a key, a value, comma separated, so I know that, oh, this is one set like that. In this, the way you're able to order is you can access is just have to say name of the dictionary and the key, and you get the value. So you're primarily saying in this case print W3, and let us say what I'm looking for is okay. Let's look at this. Dict object. This is the one. Then give extra space here. So end of it, the speed and size of data and access is important. I'm sorry, excuse me. But also what is important is the how easy it is for us to maintain the code in future for all the developers who are contributing. That becomes critical as well. Okay, sorry. I'm not covering arrays right now. We will come to it. We'll be doing file handling, a lot of these things, team. Primarily, what I need to do now is look at how, so we've done this, right? Let me just save this as copy, paste, Control C, Control V, Control G. So here I'll clean up whatever we don't need, team. We try to represent data in various formats. Right now, I believe all that I want is here in this dictionary. Everything else is relevant here. What I need to do is perform these things. So for me able to access this, I need something called as a don't know if I'm doing the WebDriver today. Let's see. So that's my Python version. Git install. I just want to see what version it is. And Google WebDriver. Firefox Python. Okay, let's check this. I'm seeing if it is available theme so that I can quickly write it. But otherwise, let me download the code driver. And taking the unzipped or zipped is okay. 32 should work with 64 as well. So I'll say it's okay. Click on this. It should download it. Okay, so that is one. Step one, Gecko driver, unzip the file, executable, edit the path. Okay. So there are multiple methods that is showing out of Gecko drive within the test script. This is one of the easiest way that I would like to look at. Let me explain to you. I don't even know if it works, but this is what we do. So what am I saying here is let this be part of my input system. Anything that we are importing from a specific library, I would typically like to keep it as my top statement. So at the beginning of the code, I already know what all are the used inputs. Under my inputs, yes, I have my dictionary with my URL. I'll just call it U. This basically is saying where my gecko driver.exe will be. So I have put that into my downloads. This is my folder. I'm going to go to my downloads. Gecko driver from there. And put it in the. Maybe I'll create a small folder so I can organize these drivers. There are Chrome drivers, there are drivers for each of the ones. We're just trying to use one of them. Does that need apply for us to use it on multi-browsers? Sure, then we can absolutely try not. But primarily you start with first one driver to help us out, then we can create this. So one driver, I've unzipped it, that file here. So this is my path now. That is the path that I would change out here. So executable path, read from this driver, gecko driver.exe, gecko driver.exe, that is the same file. Hopefully this file is there. Let's see what we can do. I think Selenium is what I was looking at, and if it's fully installed or not. Let's also make sure that we install this, because we're using Selenium WebDriver to start our Gecko driver. 4 more steps to be there. It should be very simple. It should not be too hard. First, does this work or not? We are not sure. But what I did, downloaded Gecko driver, and I put my WebDriver Firefox executable path to this. Now, in our terminal team, one of the things that we do is pip install Selenium. And if it is not already installed and downloaded as package, it is going to do it on your virtual environment. So now for this package or for this environment, it is not set up, and that is where it's downloading the latest, all that is required. Options is optional. Let's see, 3 or 4 of these lines should do it. So we've done that, doing it from Selenium WebDriver. So this is there. Options is something I may not need to. That is why this is if I need to add options. Primarily, what I'm trying to do is go to a URL. We'll see if this works. This is failed with error code 1. Get requires for build wheel. Failed with error code 1. Install. What happened? Let's see. So sometimes if my versions of Python and that are there are not in sync, then it could be a challenge. So pip is 19, Python is 3.8. Let me debug this thing. What exactly? But my next command to launch the browser would be this. I don't have a hard-coded URL, but I have my dictionary object in which I know. So at any point I change just the reference of the object, and I should be set. This should ideally be the code that will work, but since this installation is not completed correctly, I don't think it launched the process. And that should be okay. We'll come back tomorrow to do that. But not fancy, yeah. I could not install Selenium with the pip. That's the reason I didn't do that. Let me try again. It's definitely a versioning challenge, maybe. Should be able to fix it. But team, that's primarily what we're getting into. Once we do this, the next few steps should be easy for us. But very important on how you understand the data and how we're storing it. Second thing that we have tried to cover or wanted to cover today is the JSON itself, how it behaves within Python. We'll be able to cover that as well. The thing with JSON team, I can always load it as a JSON file. I can store it as a JSON string or as an external JSON file. So what you're seeing as the data being there within the code, tomorrow can be moved to a .json file. And that is where we'll have good distributed way of organizing the stuff. All right, team, that's it from the session. Let me know the questions. I'll stop the recording for now and upload the video very fast.